video on transpiration. Thanks to all the subscribers. I've pulled my finger out and going to do another video because so many people are signing up. So I appreciate that, and I'm glad you like the videos, I guess. I'm just tucked under a wattle tree because there's a lot of wind, so if it blows in and out, I'm sorry about that. I'll try and talk loud. So we're going to talk about transpiration today. I want to talk about efficiency of the transpiration method. If you are going to use this as a genuine means to get water, it's going to be a pain in the ass if you have to put up 15, 20, 30 bags, because it's just going to take you all day. Sorry guys, just a quick voiceover to fill in this section because the wind kicked in. I was just saying a good knowledge of this theory will help your efficiency when setting it up. You won't need to use as many bags, you won't need to carry as many bags, you'll get a better yield from your bags. So transpiration is essential to the survival of the plant. In order for the plant to draw water and minerals to the shoots and the leaves, it transpires water. It also cools the plant down. It's a bit like sweating. But because there's a difference in hydrostatic water pressure, there's a difference of water at the top of the tree to the bottom. Water is drawn up through what we call xylem. It's a bit similar to how the tree takes water in the first place. Because there's a difference of concentration on the outside of the root to the inside, it is drawn into the root, assisted by the hairs on the root and things like that. And we know that process is called osmosis. So there's three types of transpiration: stomatal, lenticular, and cuticular. So we'll start with stomatal. Stomata are small openings on the leaf, on the surface of the leaf, covering the leaf surface, and they're covered by, or they're controlled by what's called a guard cell, which opens and closes to control the release of water vapor. Then you've got cuticles, which are also on the surface of a leaf. It's like a waxy surface, like a very small thin layer, and some water vapor does pass through there naturally. And then you've got lenticels, which are on all the surface of the trunk, but they're not in, the number isn't as great as that on the leaf. So the leaves are where the majority of the water vapor will transpire from into the atmosphere. So we're going to focus on that. So what I'm saying is, you could essentially put if you had a branch that was pumping water with no leaves on it, I guess you could put a plastic bag over it and get some water, but geez, I tell you what, not much. So we want to focus on the leaves. Now, there's things that control the rate of water transpiration from a tree, and by looking at the trees in the surrounding area, knowing this theory, we can get a quick idea of which trees are going to be giving off the most water vapor at a given time. The things that govern how much water is being given off by a tree is the availability of water in the ground at the time, I guess the amount of leaves that branch or tree has, the humidity, the temperature, and the availability to sunlight. So they're the kind of things that we want to look at. So when we're looking for a tree to capture our water, we don't want something that's in shade. We don't want something that's in shade or the leaves looking very scraggly or the ground is looking very dry. We want to find a healthy tree with lush leaves, indirect sunlight, and ideally we want to do it when there's low humidity and a lot of heat. Now that's not going to be the case all the time, so we just do our best to try and tick as many of those boxes as possible. So I'm going to show you a tree that I'm going to select a bit later, but in the meantime I'm just going to talk about the device to use to capture it, or the plastic bags that we use. Okay, so I want to talk about the bags that you would use to capture the water. Now there's a few things that I would consider when selecting a bag for transpiration. They are the size of the bag, the quality of the bag, the colour of the bag, the material. I think that covers most of them. Oh, and the construction, I suppose. So these are the kind of bags you'll see people trying to use. I've seen a few of these. I've seen people using the right kind of bag. Look, any bag will work, to be fair, but your efficiency isn't going to be as good. The whole idea is to cover up that leaf surface, keep away any leaks so that no water evaporates through any cracks or crevices, and capture as much water vapor which condenses on the surface of the plastic and then drains into a well that you keep down low. Now, photosynthesis requires sunlight, as we know. So using a black bag, you're going to get some water, but you're going to cut off the photosynthesis process for that part of the branch or the tree, and you're not going to get much water. So if you stick this over your tree for 24 hours, you're still only going to get a tiny amount of water. Hey, that's water, so I'm not poo-pooing it, but you can be a lot more efficient with the time, and one bag can capture, in the right conditions, 2 litres of water in a day. So it's just a matter of selecting the right bag, really. I've seen these, just your general shopping bag. Again, it probably works, but it's so small, it's so tiny, you're only going to get a few leaves in it. And as we talked about, the stomata on those leaves, we want to get as many leaves as possible, because the stomata on the leaves, that's where all the water's coming out of. So a little bag like this, you're only going to get a couple of leaves, you're not going to get hardly any water at all. You want to get as much vegetation in there as possible. Again, you know, it's sort of clear, but it's cutting out most of the sunlight, so, and you know, not very big, so not ideal. You have to look at what's viable for you, how much weight you want to carry, if you're going to use this method. This is a great method to use in some countries, not others. If water is readily available, you're probably just watching this out of interest. If you're in Australia, this is a really good method because we have a lot of eucalypt trees. Water isn't necessarily as available. A lot of places there's high mountain ranges or eucalypt forests where water is hard to find. You have to go down to valleys to find water. So you're walking through these eucalypt forests, you can string up a bunch of these bags and there might not be any water source around. So this is a great method for Australia, and eucalypts are safe to use. I'll talk about that in a sec. These are the bags I use, right? And I'm going to show you why I use these. Now these are actually bags, it's a shameless plug to a degree. I sell these, that's all I'll say. I'll put a link at the bottom if you're interested in them, that's it. I use these huge clear bags. Now, the thing that's good about these, and why I selected these bags. First of all, they've only got one seam. You see your normal shopping bag, it's got a seam down the side, and they're cut, and they've got seams all over the place. I'm sure every time I go shopping, my bag breaks. If you stick in this bag, one of those fragile little bags over a branch, you're going to get holes all over the place. And every time you do that, that's more place for water vapor to escape. You're going to lose more and more water. So they're very fragile, and you've got to be very careful to not cut the bag, or you have to tape it up. So there's that. Also, the seams break. You've carried shopping. If you're trying to fit a bunch of foliage into it, it's going to split and break. This bag is a single seam, so it's just a big sheet of plastic, and they've folded it. It's just a big drum of like a circular piece of plastic, and they just crimp the bottom and then heat seal the bottom. So the only seam is a really durable heat sealed seam at the bottom. It's a clear bag. Hi guys, I apologise about the wind coming in again. I just was saying that it's a 100 micron thick bag, clear bag. You have to weigh up what's best for you. You have to decide if you want a light bag that's also light on thickness, so it's going to break easy. You have to be very careful with it. You know, it's almost not worth carrying it because you're likely to tear it if it's quite light. You take a very heavy bag with you, then it's going to weigh a lot. So 100 microns I find it to be a good thickness, a good strength, a good trade-off, a good middle ground for weight. You don't have to be too careful with it, and you're not going to really get too many tears in it. I haven't had one tear yet, and I'm not really too careful with them. The only other thing I mention is that it is a food safe bag, so if that does bother you, I'm not going to get into that argument, but if it does bother you, these are food safe, accredited food safe plastics, so that's that. I'm going to go and set the bag up now on a tree and show you how I set it up, just a few little tips I used to set it up pretty quickly, and yeah, we'll show that video now. Alright, I'm going to set this bag up. I've selected this tree because it's healthy looking, the leaves are very lush, so it's a healthy tree. It's obviously got good access to sunlight, water, it's on the right aspect where it's going to get full sunlight all day. I've checked that. Yeah, it's a good looking tree, and the branch is easy to access. There's no point trying to fit a big bag over a tree like that. You want to be able to reach it at your kind of arm level. If the tree is next to a water source, then that's great. It's probably going to get even more water, but if the tree's next to a water source, you're going to be using the water source, aren't you, I guess? Okay, so I'm going to set this bag up, and then I might do a little voiceover just to tell you exactly what I'm doing and how I set the bag up. Just a few little tricks that I figured out of ways to set it up a bit easier. Righto, here we go.
Okay, so here's what I do. I like to first use I use paracord for this just because it's quite soft so I don't damage the tree. Otherwise, things like these gums, you can cut into them if you use a really fine cord. And what I do is I just like to use a bit of like a trucker's hitch here, and I cinch down all the branches that I want to use, and that way I keep them together so you're not messing around with trying to get the bag over, because it can be a bit difficult. You can see here I actually forgot about one of the branches, so I stop here and go back again. Here we go. But what I do is I like to grab the branch and stick it under my arm like this, and then I gather all the leaves up and I slip the bag over the front. It's a lot easier than lifting the bag up and messing around with trying to get the bag over. And also this way you get lots and lots of leaves in your bag, and therefore you get more water. So then I've just got a bit of bank line here, and I just gather the bag up, making sure I gather it up nice and tight. And again, a bit of a trucker's hitch, and I just cinch the bag down around the branch of the tree. And I want to make sure that I've got no gaps, or as little gaps as possible, because that water vapor will escape through that gap, and I want to collect that as condensation. So I just tie it around a few times, make sure it's nice and tight, and just check my bags on properly, check everything's good, and now I'm just going to add the well. So I just push all that foliage and bits and pieces out, and just tie a little knot at the top with probably about a 1.5 litre well there. And then you just want to tie it to a rock or a branch. You can tie it to the base of the tree. I just tied it to the fence here because it was nearby. And yeah, make sure it's pointing down and you collect your water.
Okay, here is our bag. So just a quick overview and some close-ups of what I've done. I've got my bag over. I've done a once-over check of it just to make sure that there are no holes in the bag. I picked off any dead branches before I put it over just to eliminate that chance. I've tied my well to the bottom and tied it down. I just tied it to the fence today, but a heavy rock, a heavy branch, or I've even tied it straight back to the trunk before, that's fine. Make sure it's on a downward angle so the water's collecting and you've got no foliage in the bottom, just to keep it out. Not a huge deal, but it is nice because you get lots of animal what's and bits and poos and wheeze on these leaves, and you don't want all the water running off that into your beautiful drinking water. I've cinched the end down nice and tight. I just put a loop through my line, pass it through a bit like a trucker's hitch, and cinch it down as tight as I can, just to keep you want a nice tight seal in there to eliminate as much evaporation as possible. And at this end, you don't have to do this, this is optional, but I like to gather it, just scase it out a bit and check what branches are going to be feasible for me to gather in the bag, and then I cinch those branches together just with, again, a little loop and a trucker's hitch. Just pull it together just so it's a lot easier to collect the branches together, and then you can just feed them into your bag. You want to take this off at night time because the photosynthesis won't be happening at night time, obviously. You're not going to be getting it, little to no water evaporation. You're just going to harm the tree anyway, so after a day you've taken that part of the tree or that tree, move on to somewhere else, don't harm the tree. Speaking of not harming the tree, believe it or not, for the branches, especially on this type of gum, I like to use the paracord because it is quite soft, so it won't damage the tree when I cinch it down. Even though this is my tree in my yard, I still don't want to harm it. And if you use something like a bank line, which is very thin, you're going to cut into this bark, which is very soft, as you know. So let's that's just something to think about. Okay, I'll be back in 5 or 6 hours and we'll see how much water we've got. Alright. Okay, so as it does, Murphy's Law, we lost the sun after a couple of hours, and it's come over pretty overcast now, and there's a big storm heading this way anyway, so we only got a few hours of sunlight, but it was reasonably warm for a few hours there, and you can see we collected a decent amount of water anyway, in probably had 2 or 3 hours of sunlight. A couple of cups there, I think, and yeah, that's not too bad. So if we had a full sunlight, that wouldn't be too bad. You want to boil this water probably because, while evaporated or condensed water is reasonably safe, whatever the bugs and birds do their business on those leaves, that's not very safe, and that's going to be hitting the leaves and rolling off, so it's best to boil it just to be safe. But if you're in a fix, I'm sure you could drink it. The water is reasonably safe.
what else can I say? Yeah, that's pretty much it really. I just wanted to show the result. And if you're interested in these bags, you can get them on the store and the link I put in the description. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope that was useful for you. So thanks for watching. Cheers.